had a near-death experience in 1967 when you were 26 years old. Can you tell us about it and what happened? Thank you. Yes, I had this experience following the delivery of my second child. So 3 weeks after having given birth, I had a very, very serious hemorrhage. And I was taken to the hospital with a blood pressure of 5. And the next day, I went into the operating room for a D&C. But finally, another hemorrhage occurred, and I had to have an emergency hysterectomy. And that's when I had this experience, because my heart stopped beating for 45 seconds with a flat electrocardiogram, and my blood pressure was down to between 2 and 3. But during this procedure, I experienced the most beautiful moment of my life. The most beautiful moment of my life. I found myself outside of my body. Everything that was me, that is, my true being, was on the ceiling. And I had a 360-degree panoramic vision. I could see everywhere, on all sides at once. And most of all, I had this incredible feeling that I existed beyond my body. For the first time in my life, I understood that I was not only this body, I was the inhabitant of this body. Then I heard the doctor and the nursing staff bustling about. The surgeon was saying, "Quick, a bag of blood." A nurse ran to get a bag of blood. "Hurry, another one. Hurry, a third." I later found out that I had used up the hospital's blood bank. And at one point, the surgeon said, "Oh, she's dying on me." Before that, I had time to look at myself. I was, of course, lying on the operating table with tubes everywhere. I wasn't pale. I was like a corpse. And I said to myself, "How ugly you are, girl." But it didn't matter, because that body was like the shell of a snail. It just wasn't me. I thought about my husband and my father-in-law, who had said to me as I was going from the bedroom to the operating room. My husband also said to me, "Don't worry, everything is going to be fine. We're waiting for you in the waiting room." Well, I thought of them, and instantly I was in the waiting room. I became aware of walking through the walls without any apprehension, because there's no time to realize anything. It just happens. In this waiting room, I saw my husband and my father-in-law. Both of them were pacing up and down, and I realized that I could see them, but they couldn't see me. So I was waving to them. I tried by all means to show myself to them, but in vain. I must admit that I felt kind of despair. The despair of a person who wants to say, "But don't worry, I'm here." Not being able to be seen, understood, and later I thought, it's terrible for people who are truly dead and are more alive than ever to feel that those around them consider them dead. Obviously, I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm just here to share my experience. And later on, of course, I realized, how could anyone understand that I had passed through the walls? I had a simple academic education in school. You can't understand this. And one has to be interested in spirituality, in the spiritual anatomy of the human being, to be able to understand these experiences. And so, in this waiting room, believe it or not, there was no bench and no chair. My husband confirmed this to me later. I had this ability, while being me, to be the others too. I was, so to speak, in my husband's heart, not in his physical heart, but I knew everything he was thinking. I knew everything he was as a human being, and the same for my father-in-law. So afterwards, I tried to comfort my father-in-law. Later, I said to my husband, "You weren't too worried, were you?" But no, because after all, I had come in for a D&C, and that was it. He was unafraid. And my father-in-law, he was older. He was more worried. So I wanted to reassure him. I put my hand on his shoulder, but my hand went right through his body. I said to myself, "What's wrong with you? What is happening to you?" I didn't understand. Then I found myself in an abyss of darkness, of silence. I had the impression of being in total nothingness. It lasted maybe, I don't know, a second, a fraction of a second. I can't say, because time no longer exists in this experience. And then I was aware that I was dead. And I said to myself, "That's it, my girl, you are dead." But no, I was more alive than ever. And if anything, I was 1,000 times smarter than I am now. And I remembered what I was taught when I was younger. In Sunday school, I was raised Roman Catholic, and we were told that we lived until the end of time, until the final resurrection. But in that dimension, what is the end of time? 1,000 years? 10,000 years? 1,000,000 years? 1,000,000,000 years? It didn't make sense anymore. And then maybe I became anxious, and fortunately, in the distance, I saw a pinprick of light. And I always say, let's imagine ourselves in an inky black night, and suddenly a star appears. We're not alone in the world anymore. And I was sucked into that light at full speed. And I remember that I felt noises, buzzing. I could see lights that were still quite bright. Everything faded away afterwards. I felt some presence around me. I couldn't see the faces, but I could see them. And this light became the whole horizon. And I went into that light. I can assure you, this was the most beautiful moment of my life. The most beautiful moment of my life. That's for sure. Because it wasn't just light, it was love that we have no idea of on earth. A love that fills you, your soul, that restores you, your soul. This light was not blinding. I was returning home. I was in my homeland. I was love. I was life. I understood the words, I am. Because while being me, I was becoming everything. I do not know how to explain it. Everything was in me. I was everything, and everything was in me. And this notion of being one, yet everything at the same time, is something extraordinary. And this love, I have never found anything like it on earth. Even though I have been very lucky. I had loving parents. I have a husband who loves me. I have children and grandchildren who love me. But it was nothing compared to all this love that was waiting for me. It was nothing. I found myself in a beautiful garden. You can find that on earth too. But if I looked at a blade of grass, I saw the light in it, the molecules of life. I saw other colors, pastel colors, that we don't have here on earth. I sat by a stream. It was water light. I can't explain it. And the sounds became colors, and vice versa. And I felt like I was no more important than a musical note, a blade of grass, a drop of water, because I had simply become life itself. And I thought we were doing the opposite of what we should be doing when we lose a loved one. We feel despair. You think you'll probably never see them again. I thought, if we knew they were just living on, or that they've just returned to this other part of life, if we knew that they were in fact on the route to life with a capital L, or that they had already entered into this life, then I remember seeing beings that I have never seen on earth, but I recognized them. I saw a being who came to me. My heart, of course, skipped a beat. It was my little brother. My parents had lost a 7-month-old baby when I was 11 years old. I was his little mother, in a way. It had been terrible for me, yet there he was. He was a teenager, radiating light. Of course, one might say, but how can you be sure, Mrs. Dron, that this was your brother? there is a big difference between what a baby looks like and a teenager. So I say, I have no proof to give anyone. I just know. I know. That's all. Even if the whole world was against me, I assure you, it wouldn't matter. I think it's a soul-to-soul recognition. There's no other way to explain it. I found myself in his arms. He was solid, and so was I. Whereas in the waiting room of the hospital, my hand had gone through my father-in-law's shoulder. I think that we were in the same dimension, and that what made his reality was also mine. And I said to my brother, if only Mom and Dad could see you, can you imagine how happy they would be? And it's not even in words, it's a direct communion. It's beyond words. I was him, he was me. That's all. He told me, I can't say otherwise, of course. He told me that he had always guided us, always loved us. And I was really extremely moved because I understood that his love was far beyond human love. He loved us for who we were. That was all. I saw my husband's brother, too. My husband, at 14 years old, had lost a 25-year-old brother. He had drowned, and that was a tragedy in the life of my husband and my in-laws. And he was there, too. He was waiting for me. I can't tell you, as I would like to, but I saw a being. I felt like it was the whole universe coming to me in the form of a being who didn't identify himself or herself, but our heart knows who it is. He asked me, how do you love? What have you done for others? And at the same time, I saw thousands of hands turned, raised to the sky, pleading. I knew it was humanity, all of humanity suffering. What had I done for them? Obviously, I wasn't unkind, but I hadn't given my full potential. If I'm asked, what does this phrase mean to me now? How did you love? What have you done for others? I would say, have you loved yourself? How did you let life grow in yourself and in every human being? How did you set it free? And in the presence of that being, I was shown my whole life. I was able to review my life with the good things, with the bad things. When I had done something good, I was in the heart of the person to whom I had done good, and I was receiving what I had given. And of course, the other way around, the reverse too. And at the same time, what is surprising, it was as if another part of me, one could say, the soul, the self, the conscious, whatever, this other part of me was able not to judge, but to evaluate my life in relation to what it should have been if I had always been loving and wise. And I understood there that love means rectitude and also justice, at least some rightness, that it is not something punitive. It's not punitive at all. It's to help us be who we really are. And, well, I also saw the future. I could see my children growing up. I was very proud of them. And at one point, I was shown the future of my life. I saw my in-laws and my grandmother, who were about the same age, 3 years apart. And I could see that all three of them would die in a very short period of time, 3 weeks apart. 2 of the 3 weeks apart, and much later, on January 27th of 1981, my father-in-law passed away. Then, 3 weeks later, on the same day, the same Tuesday, my grandmother died. And at the end of the year, it was my mother-in-law. And then I saw, but when I say and then, I can't help but use the words in a row, because everything is there at once. But here it is. Words are powerless to explain it. And I saw the evolution of the earth. I saw giants that walked the earth. I had a whole lot of information about Atlantis. But this information, it's gone. I only know that I knew. I had quite a bit of information about the creation of the earth. I was told about Atlantis. I was told that life was everywhere in the universe. I was told that our Earth was not a sacred planet. I didn't understand what that meant. I understood it in that dimension, but afterwards, I had to rediscover that in my life, let's say, and that it was in the process of becoming a sacred planet. I was told that God was force itself, movement itself, and life itself, and that anything that went toward oneness was good. I was told that on the most subtle planes, that Christ, Buddha, and Muhammad were working together to regenerate the earth on the most subtle planes. And when I die, well, they won't ask me what race, what religion, what tradition I belonged to. It is only the quality of being of an individual that is important. Then I was shown the future of humanity. I was told that in 1968 we had great technology, but that unfortunately brotherhood, consciousness had not accompanied this technology. So what could we say now, today? And they showed me all the things that could happen if we didn't change. And for me, the if is crucial. It's crucial because it is our part of freedom in a way. It's not something that has to happen. But if we don't change, these things can happen. So in 1968, everything was flourishing. I was shown unemployment that would spread all over the world. I was told about a plague, too, that would ravage the whole world. Of course, some people said to me, but Nicole, already for some time, don't you think it's AIDS? And now they say, rereading your first book, because you said the same thing in that book. Do you think it's COVID? There was no name. I'm not going to make it up. I don't know anything about it, but they told me that. And so I saw tsunamis, earthquakes. I know that our Earth will experience great upheavals. And above all, one thing that affected me a lot was that I saw great violence that was rising. Great violence was rising. And so I know that we are at crossroads at this moment, and that finally all these calamities, one could say, could be avoided or perhaps mitigated if we ourselves work on love within us. Quite simply, but I see my experience at the heart of each religion, at its heart, but yet beyond religion at the same time, beyond the institutions, because Christ, as I was told about him, as I understood him on the other side, and mind you, I don't pretend to have understood everything that it represented, but he was far beyond all religions. He, Christ, he represented the fullness of God in every human being. That was it. I cried when I understood that, because I understood that we each have in our hearts a little piece of this Christ, and we are asked to make it live. That's it. That's it. To the extent that we are able to, well, to grow in love, in wisdom. But we no longer need all these calamities that we cause, in a way. I found myself in a city of gold, of light, and of precious stones. It was beautiful. I saw my life again there. I was shown certain details. I was asked if I wanted to stay on the other side, or if I wanted to return. So it may seem monstrous to some people, but all I wanted to do was stay on the other side, even though I had a husband and children. I felt I would not have been separated from them, that they would have been inside me on the other side. But when I thought about it, when I came back down a little bit in human consciousness, well, I didn't want my children to be orphans. I didn't want them to suffer. And I didn't want them to reach out to another mother other than myself. I wanted my husband to be happy, but definitely not in the arms of another woman. So there it is. And I was told that I would come back and forget a lot of things, because I had to. And I mischievously thought, aha, they want me to forget a lot of things, but I'm sure to remember. And yet when I woke up, I only brought back bits and pieces. I was shown a wall of gems, and I was invited to be a stone in that wall. Obviously, I know that this is symbolic. It is inviting a whole inner transformation. I also saw a being coming to me. As far as I saw it, I wanted to melt into it. I don't even know if it was a man or a woman. He seemed to give off both energies at the same time. And yet, at the same time, I understood that this being was me. But me, at the end of time, me realized. And I wanted to say, if you only knew how beautiful we are on the other side, each one of us. And we should tell the children, instead of talking about mortal sin and so on. I respect all that, of course, but we should say, hold on to your star. Don't forget who you are, because on the highest planes of your being, you are beautiful. You have the strength for everything. You have the strength to go through even the hardest of trials. You can get through. You have that strength within you. And so, at the same time, it's quite humbling, because I could see how far I still had to go on earth to be who I already am on the other plane, in a way. It's very difficult to explain, very difficult. Afterwards, my brother, who, let's say, said goodbye to us, he said, you tell Mom and Dad to be very forgiving of my maternal grandmother when she leaves. And my maternal grandmother loved her daughter, my mother, but also her son-in-law. She would say to him, you are more than a son to me. And I could see that there would be not a fight, but like a misunderstanding at the end of her life. When I woke up afterwards, I thought, this can't be. This isn't going to happen. But it did, because my grandmother became senile. We would today say Alzheimer's. And so there were little things like that that hurt my parents. And of course, we didn't hold it against her, because it really wasn't her fault, if you will, but even that was true. So I don't remember leaving my body, but I do remember coming back into my body through my head. It's not poetic, what I'm going to say, but it felt like being stuffed into a sock. On the other side, for me, it was the tragedy of existence. On the other side, I was me, and I was everything at the same time. And then I returned, as if in a coffin, and this feeling of being everything had disappeared. The other became someone else, and that's how we then sometimes quarrel. Whereas on the other plane, we are one. They had to slap me to wake me up. And when I did, I had such a beautiful piece of music in my ears, so beautiful it would make you cry, of incredible beauty. I'm still looking for something in classical music or in sacred music that would sound like what I heard, but in vain. It's just in vain. And above all, I came back with the feeling of having brought back a moment of eternity. But it's very, very minimal compared to everything I experienced. I only brought back bits and pieces. And it's also very frustrating, because behind this music, there is plenitude. There was this feeling of being one with life, with the universe. But I say thank you to life with a capital L that allowed me to live this experience, because everything has changed since. What would you say was the main impact your experience had on your life afterwards? If we can sum it up in 2 words, I would say having and being. Before, without really knowing it, I was like everyone else. I was into having. That is to say, well, I'm not a very materialistic person, no, but I have always, I think, been open to spirituality, even when I was younger. But I didn't know, I had never had this experience. So being in the having, for me, it's, well, who said that? It was a German psychotherapist named Karl Fried Durkheim. I have written it because having is the ego at work. It is the intelligence and the will when they are distorted by desires, passions, emotions. It is what in us wants to be acknowledged all the time. And it's an illusion given by life. And I would say that before, I was right in the middle of it. And after having lived this experience, well, all these human troubles, shall we say, I would say that they are human troubles. These illusions pass, go away. We are beyond all that then. And I knew plenitude, total freedom, which for me is being in its true sense. And so this experience gave me the deep desire to seek the truth, to seek justice, truth, which leads to plenitude. And I know that the only way to get there is love. I know that. Your way of understanding death has undoubtedly been modified by your experience. I'm no longer afraid of death in the sense that often when we are afraid of death, it's because we're afraid of no longer existing. Now I know, I undoubtedly know that there is only life, and that when I close my two eyes, life will continue. I know this without any doubt. On the other hand, like everyone else, I am only a human being, and I am afraid of the suffering that we may go through before death, or senility, and so forth. Yes, of course, but I'm no longer afraid of death because, and this is precisely where life has all its importance. When you know that you don't die, life becomes precious because you know that you have come to grow in a way. Regarding religion, you said you were raised Catholic. Did your way of considering beliefs or religion change afterwards? Of course. I would say that when I was young, well, my parents were deeply Christian without going to church, but they wanted us to have Christian values. And so I was brought up with those values, and I will never deny my religion because I know that within it there are many sacred treasures, as certainly within all true religions, which preach love. But following this experience, I am no longer, that is, I no longer feel, shall I say, like a prisoner of not a religion, but of religious institutions. When people say, for example, outside the church, there is no salvation, for me, this no longer makes sense, because I have experienced the great religion of love. For me, there is only one religion, and that is love. And in this great religion, all religions are included. It's as simple as that. And for me, the real religion is not about history. It's already a good thing to be given tools to understand beliefs and so forth. But now I have faith. And it is not a faith. It is not a faith that is imposed upon us. It is the faith of experience. And for me, true religion is the path that leads from the caterpillar to the butterfly. It's the path of transformation. It's not just believing, it's becoming what you believe. It's embodying those truths. And I know that we will not be judged. I don't like that word, but that we will be evaluated according to what we have done with these qualities, if we have incarnated them or not. That for me is true religion. Thank you so very much, Nicole. Thank you so much for this interview. And I thank you.